Welcome to The Bottom Line Up Front, the podcast that cuts through the noise to deliver distilled insights from today's most important technical webinars, presentations, and demonstrations. Designed for federal and military IT leaders, each episode breaks down complex technologies into mission-ready takeaways so you get the key points fast. Whether it's cybersecurity, cloud architecture, or emerging defense technologies, we highlight what matters most and how trusted integrators like ATP Gov can help implement and operationalize these solutions across your agency or command. No fluff, no filler, just the bottom line up front. Picture it. A single exposed AWS access key. Minutes later, logging disabled, new admin users are spun up, and GPU-packed instances begin burning compute for crypto. Today, we're going to talk about the anatomy of a real cloud compromise and what it teaches federal and DoD defenders and how to harden, identify, log, and guardrail before your next big incident. And we're going to be doing that by breaking down a Unit 42 cloud incident response case, plus highlights from their 2026 Global Incident Response Report. We'll translate it for federal and military listeners and close with how we can help you implement the controls that actually move the needle. So let's talk about the case. Crypto mining in the cloud.
Unit 42 was engaged by a company in the entertainment industry that had fallen victim to a cloud attack. Our team was called in to help mitigate the attack and investigate the incident. One thing to note with cloud cases is that it's actually very common to not know the threat actor group associated with an attack, unlike traditional on-prem attacks. At a high level, this was a common cloud case, but the one notable tactic that we observed was the threat actor's disabling of logging, which is actually not as common as you'd expect in cloud-based attacks. This meant that the attack was harder to detect for the defenders, and the incident responders had to get creative with how we accessed the logs, which added a unique challenge to the investigation.
As mentioned in the intro, a threat actor obtained a publicly exposed AWS access key and associated it with an IAM user. This turns out to be one of the most common initial vectors that responders see in cloud investigations. From there, the intruder disabled and deleted CloudTrail logging to blind detection and alerting. Investigators were still able to recover 90 days of CloudTrail data via API, which can be a key lesson on the importance of native retention and responder tradecrafts. From there, the actor created a new nondescript IAM user with elevated privileges to continue operations under the radar. They stood up EC2 instances with 8 GPUs and 64 virtual CPUs. That particular architecture is tailor-made for crypto mining, and from there they began resource hijacking.
Based on research and the first-gen observations that we've made in responding to cloud incidents, Unit 42 has observed 3 key issues that contribute to a significant portion of cloud incidents. So that's identity access management issues, misconfigurations, and vulnerabilities that ultimately have very real, tangible, widespread impact.
Boiled down, all of this means that identity and logging gaps turn one leaked key into a scalable compute theft. In the cloud, the control plane is the battlefield, and defenders win or lose on AIM hygiene, immutable logging, and automated guardrails.
So most notably, we found that 60% of organizations take more than 4 days to resolve security issues. 76% of organizations don't enforce MFA for console users, and 58% neglect it for root or administrator accounts. 63% of production code bases contain higher critical vulnerabilities. This substantially increases exploitation risk. 83% of organizations expose sensitive credentials in source control systems.
So what does all this mean for federal and DoD data centers? Well, federal and military environments carry high identity sprawl. That's both human and machine. They consist of hybrid multi-clouds, but they also have strict compliance and record-keeping expectations. The cloud attack we just described weaponized exactly what many programs still struggle to govern: access keys, logs, and least privilege.
We all know that the way organizations are working today has changed inherently. The pandemic accelerated our move to the cloud and the use of SaaS platforms to support the increase in remote work and connectivity. While the convenience, performance, and availability of the shift has been great, having so much of our apps and data outside the perimeter of a traditional data center has caused our attack surface to grow exponentially.
That said, and considering that AI is now a force multiplier, there are still certain things that products like Unit 42 urges that we must track. In this particular case, according to Unit 42's observations, attackers are compressing the life cycle. The fastest 25% reach data exfiltration in roughly 72 minutes. That's down from 285 minutes in 2024. With the help of AI, you can expect templated scripts, consistent negotiation playbooks, and parallelized targeting at scale. Unit 42 also found that 65% of initial access was identity driven. That means phishing, previous credentials, brute force, and insider and policy gaps. And 99% of the 680,000 cloud identities have excessive permissions. That means that least privilege and just-in-time admins are table stakes for hackers. And it's not just vulnerable code. OAuth and SaaS integrations, vendor tooling, and transitive dependencies create downstream disruption at scale when upstream is compromised. That means we need an increased focus on virtualization layers, persona-driven access, and early signs of AI-enabled C2 persistence. This also means verification in hiring and contractor pipelines requires deeper monitoring across virtualized infrastructures.
On average, new issues are found every 12 hours, which creates a very small window for organizations to react and really secure their environments. Not a matter of if, but when.
Based on what we learned from Unit 42, here are some priority actions that can be mapped to the use case we framed at the top of the episode. First, make logs unkillable or at least auditable. In the case of AWS, centralize CloudTrail or guard duty and equivalent telemetry into write-once destinations. Alert on log tampering and deletion and sudden gaps. You also have to ensure that teams know how to pull retained logs via API even if the bucket is wiped. Second, eliminate standing secrets. Rotate and retire long-lived access keys. Enforce federation for humans and set short session lifetimes with conditional access for sensitive roles. And make sure you incorporate just-in-time elevation for administrators. 3. You need to harden identity as the perimeter. Phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication, that's FIDO2 and passkeys, for admins and high-value users. Continuous discovery of machine identities, service accounts, along with permission right-sizing, help to combat identity drift. 4. We need to use guardrails in our pipeline. We need to enforce CI/CD-based deployments, with IAC scanning for misconfigs and secret detection pre-commit hooks. You have to treat OAuth apps and integrations as identities and revoke any dormant connections. 5. Browser and SaaS are part of the AO. With 48% of investigations reflecting browser activity, adopt behavioral email and browser controls and out-of-band verification for all sensitive requests. And finally, practice machine speed response. Develop playbooks that can auto-revoke tokens, isolate workflows, and quarantine identities. And as we've learned, the fastest actors can reach exfiltration in just over an hour, and that number is going to continue to go down. So here's our implementation recommendation. Focus on identity hardening and just-in-time administration. Rationalize identity estates, that's human versus machine, and deploy phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication, as well as implementing least privilege and just-in-time patterns across your AWS, your Azure, your GCP, and your SaaS applications. You also need tamper-resistant log pipelines. That means cross-account, immutable storage, and delegated administrative boundaries. In addition, we need real-time alerting on logging impairment, plus incident runbooks to recover retained logs via API when adversaries attempt deletions. We also need to be sure to integrate secrets management, IAC policy as code, and pre-commit CI policy checks as DevSecOps guardrails. This prevents public key exposure and misconfiguration drift before it hits production. You should also back this up with SaaS and OAuth integration inventories and break glass playbooks. Controls for browser-based data loss, session hardening, and shadow integration discovery align with federal models and telework realities, and this should always be considered going forward. We also need to elevate our response time to machine speed, and that might mean updating some systems to include automated containment in your SOC. Things like token revocation, workload isolation, and roles rollback. With this type of toolchain and additional training for your analyst, they can more effectively operate playbooks, and it will help with what Unit 42 now calls the 72-minute race. So what's the bottom line up front? Identity is now the front line. It drives 65% of initial access. There's tons of over-provisioned identities out there, of which 99% of them have excessive permissions, which make lateral movement absolutely trivial. We have to fix our multi-factor authentication. We need to adopt least privilege and just-in-time. Logs are our life in the data center. Adversaries will attempt to disable and delete them. So we need to design for immutable, centralized logging and know how to pull native retention via APIs if accessible. Speed kills. The fastest intrusions have hit exfil in record-breaking time. So we need to automate containment and don't rely completely on human-only workflows. You need to trust your integrations carefully. Inventory and right-size your OAuth, your vendor tools, and your transitive dependencies. Prepare for break glass situations and be able to sever connections quickly. So if you're a civilian agency, DoD, or just supporting the mission, and you want identity hardening, unkillable logs, and machine speed response, and to be able to actually implement it, Unit 42, part of Palo Alto Networks, as well as help from ATP Gov, will start you on a rapid cloud identity and logging readiness review and build a prioritized 90-day plan to close your biggest gaps first. So from phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication to tamper-resistant logs, together, let's implement controls that directly counter these tactics. Be sure to reach out to ATP Gov today at www.atpgov.com or email info@atpgov.com or check us out on social media on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to The Bottom Line up front wherever you get your podcasts, and stay tuned for more distilled insights from the front lines of tech and national security. So until next time, stay secure, stay mission ready.